All right, this is my basic restoration on a Browning Mark IV transmitter. Already did the receiver in another video. So this is on the transmitter. Transmitter came in much like the receiver, pretty dirty. So we just use what I use is Windex with a cloth. And that's how I clean the fronts of these radios and the knobs. Just plain old Windex. It's not too abrasive, but it's got a little cleaning power to it. Won't take off the lettering in that. So you can see now, this thing looks like it's brand new. Really sharp. Thanks to Windex and a little elbow grease. Then I went inside and this was really bad. So blew this all out and then took a paintbrush and tried to get out as much as I could, but stuff was so caked on that the paintbrush wasn't doing anything. So what I do is I used a jeweler's brush and I went down and just spent time and just the whole circuit board everywhere. That's what's nice about this. It can get into all these little spots. And so use that to clean these. It's going to take you a little time. I burned through a whole one of these, you know, because it gets pretty dirty and filthy, and then you got to cut the tips off and then just keep on, you know, working it. Used it to clean the tops of these. Don't go crazy. Don't scrub the lettering off. You know, tops of the cans, this, all this. And this thing looked really bad. So same thing on this. Just use this jeweler's brush and it just polished up nicely. So that looks really good. Over here, I used it here, but this is just a patina. This is actually clean. I know it looks dirty. And if you really want to go to town, I suppose you could get some sandpaper and chemicals and maybe get that stuff off. But it's clean. It's just a patina. It shows its age. Nothing wrong with that. So that took care of the cleaning process. I left the tubes. What I do with the tubes is take all the tubes out, test those tubes. I did find one bad tube. The rest of them were great. So replace the tube. You can use a little Windex and cloth on these tubes, but don't go too crazy. You'll rub that lettering off. So you could even use just water and that and clean those tubes off. And while you have those tubes out, use some Deoxit D5, spray in those tube sockets, and get those all cleaned out, or all anyway, the electrical oxidation off those, which this will help. And then plug those tubes back in. Then it's on to the electrolytic capacitors. So you've got one here, you've got some over here. I ended up using axle capacitors. These were normally radial. I had these in my parts box. If you're a purist, use your axle ones and put them in there. Otherwise, these work fine. I'm going to keep this as my own personal radio, so it's okay for me. This PLL circuit, there are also capacitors on this. There's one there. I think there's one under this board and a couple under this board. So you're going to take these two screws off. Then you're going to undo these screws and pull this whole thing forward. Pull this forward to get to access to that one. This board, just pull it forward and you'll be able to get access. Don't, go crazy on it, but you'll be able to pull it forward. There's enough slack on the wires. You can change out those caps. There's another cap right here to change out, right over here. This PLL unit, that's the good thing about this radio. It works. The channel selector went through. It shows the display, no intermittent crap going on. This is a bear to get access to. Even when you take it off, it's not accessible just lifting it up. So you know what, on this thing, I'm going to use if it ain't broke, leave it alone. Hopefully it'll be okay. It's worked this long. So I got everything I could get, and we just hope this keeps working. If you really want to go to town, there are some electrolytics in there, I'm told. Okay, let's go ahead and flip this over. Before I do that, you can see that capacitor right there. That's an electrolytic multi-stage. So that's a 210 UF, 450 volts. Now here's the problem with this. They don't make those anymore. Even Barker Electronics isn't able to get them right now, or maybe never to get them again. They just aren't making them. So I like the looks of it, so I left it intact, but what I ended up doing is just a really inexpensive way to replace it is just changing it out to these 210 UFs, 450 volt. To do that, you can see the bottom side of this. There was a ground wire going to one of the ground lugs, and then this capacitor, one of the legs, was going to the other lug. Cut those off, solder those together. You've taken care of those. You've taken care of those two ground lug connections. Then there is a wire going to one of the positive lugs, and you can follow that, and it comes over to here. Cut that off, solder your positive of your new cap to where that wire was, solder the negative to ground right there, convenient. That takes care of one leg. The other leg has two wires going to it. One of the wires you'll trace over to here, goes over to here, this area. Cut that off where that is, and you're going to solder the positive to where that wire was, but there's also a second wire. You can see there's a second wire that comes off the mode switch. Take that and bring that down. It used to go over here. Now it's going over to here. And you're going to solder that where the positive was, where you cut the other wire off. So now you've taken care of that. Then get that negative to ground. There's a ground spot pad underneath there. You've got that taken care of. And really inexpensive. But I like to keep the, the looks on top with that, because that'd be a big old gaping hole there. So that's that. There's another electrolytic down here by the microphone jack. That's changed out. Then this is a good time to go ahead and get all these pots. So you can see the contacts on this one and this one. Take a clean jeweler's brush and clean those off, because you can actually get to them. And then I use deoxit shield, where I can actually directly apply that. That's really good stuff. On the rest of them, where you can't get to the contacts back behind here, spray the deoxit D5 and spray it in there. Get all these pots right in there. Spray those all down, including this, I'm not sure, deoxit 5. It's good stuff too. Plate and bias, go ahead and spray in your deoxit in here too. Get that taken care of. There's another one right here. Shoot some deoxit in there. And after you turn the controls, obviously, turn them back and forth after you spray that in there. Then you've got these high wattage resistors. Now, this radio doesn't seem like it had a whole lot of use. These are in really good shape. A lot of people, if you want to, go ahead and replace them. These are still good, so those are still original. But if you want, go ahead and change those out too. Let's go back to the top side. That takes care of the bottom. Bottom was really clean because it doesn't really have excess dust. It's protected, so the bottom looked excellent. Back to the top side, the keying issue that this radio did not transmit. That was taken care of by replacing this keying transistor, and then the relay had issues. Those two items were replaced. That brought this thing to life. You can actually still get the relay and the transistor and a lot of other parts for these radios from Barkett Electronics. Barkett with a B. I don't get anything for that. It's just, it's a good place to get stuff for these because it's hard to find some of these parts. So from there, you've got that, all your basic restoration. Just and hopefully the PLL on yours still works. This one does. You can download this service manual and start doing your alignment and tune. Not a lot to it, you know, just cans, your plate and bias back here, and get this thing. This thing came right into spec, and it just tuned up nicely, so all good. You got your what is it, your ALC here. I think that's your modulation. So yeah, get that. This will describe it, how to do it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or anything. So with that, we've got this radio. What else can I bring up? Oh, one other thing, probably the most important thing to start the video out. For God's sakes, make sure this thing isn't plugged in, you know, I mean, plugged into the receiver and it plugged in. All right, and then discharge, make sure something like this bad boy is discharged. Check it with your voltmeter. I've got a discharge tool that I just discharge it and then check it. But yeah, you want to enjoy this radio. You don't want to get killed while you're working on it. So just be safe. And with that, I'm going to keep this for my personal collection. It's my very first Browning. So that's just a basic restoration. Get it going. Thanks for watching.